welcome to the Coach Dave Academy lap guide here for week number 9 of the Porsche Cup series on iRacing. I am William Chadwick and I'm going to be taking you through this lap guide in my beautiful 992 Porsche Cup GT3 car thing. And we're going to go to a hot lap next where you'll see the lap that I did for this guide, and then after that, shortly, there'll be a lap guide of me kind of explaining my thought processes and what I go through in order to achieve such a lap time.
New fastest lap for you.
Hello and welcome to the lap guide section. You've just seen a pretty toasted hot lap, but we'll move on to having a little bit of an analysis at it and have a look at kind of what we did to achieve the time. Yeah, like I said, the lap I did was pretty good actually, all things considered, but it's quite hard to hook a lap up around here sometimes. So there's a few mistakes, and I'll just point on those when we get to them, mainly on the last corner, really. But yeah, we'll just have a little look at this lap. So again, we'll talk about principles of the Cup car. I know you're saying, Will, I hear you say it every week, but I'm going to have to tell you every week, because if there's someone new and I don't tell them it, they'll blame me for being terrible. I don't know. But basic principles of the Cup car: you treat the brake as like a mountain, the brake shape as a mountain. We go up and we go down. Obviously, fast corners, you have to get up a bit quicker, but in general terms, to prevent overheating the tyres, to prevent any sudden locking, we go like this. The brake bias I was running on this lap was 40.6, I think, 40.5 percent, which is obviously very far back, but Cup car can run it in iRacing, and it tends to help with turning. So yeah, other things is just try and not slide the car, especially in a race stint. Sliding the car is the devil, so you don't want to do it. So try and avoid that. But in general, we'll go over the lap now. So Road America is great for having a lot of braking references. We'll come down to turn number 1, and you can see as you start to reach these third cones, it's different in the cockpit, because you like just about to see them come up and you're like, right, I start my braking. So you can see, very, very good example of the mountain brake shape. You'll see it if you go back on the lap and watch the trace. Build up to peak pressure about 90%, start to trail it off as we go into the corner. Now, this is a pretty alright turn 1, no real dramas on the exit. You want to be careful, really. You can use this exit curb. However, if you end up too far on this grass here, you'll get an off track, and that's obviously bad, especially if it's qualifying. But in general, you can't really use more of the inside curb than I used there. I think a general rule about this track is just the curbs are free. They're just free track space. So I'd advise you to use them at every possible opportunity, really. getting into this corner. Be careful about the grass on the left-hand side. Very easy to clip it. Again, you can use a little bit more than that, but as long as you're, again, not really overusing the exit, you'll be fine. Again, same story as turn 1. Here you can get an off-track if you go on the grass, so just be careful with it. And it was an okay first and second sector, I think, on this lap. We'll skip the straight. The only thing I'll say is keep nice and close to the right here, just to minimise distance. And if you really want to minimise it a bit more, you can cut across here. But I find it makes the braking marker harder. About the 3 board, you start to think about braking, start to brake the car down. And as you can see, I use a lot of this entry here. Now, you can use more than this, but you have to be aware. If you start to step these 2 wheels over this curb, you will get a slowdown. And RIP, that did happen to one of my friends in a BMW Sim Cup race. Tom Burns, blessed. He'll like that shout out. But yeah, he got that. And especially on a lap 1 of a race, I wouldn't even risk being that close to it, because lap 1 of a race, you always get longer slowdowns because the game doesn't have a theoretical reference. So you'll lose 3 or 4 seconds from just extending that track a little bit too much. So just be careful with it. It can be done, and you should extend the track here, but just be careful and know of that slowdown. Through here, it's a hard braking zone. As you can see, the car goes through a few little bumps, which can definitely start you to lock. But as long as you're getting your front wheels on this curb, you're pretty all right. And then just being careful on the exit, really, using all the curb, because there's so much of it. The curb is basically the track limit, so I completely ignore the white lines. Again, into here, probably the trickiest corner in the track to get consistently right. I mean, realistically, I think if this was just a flat ground corner, like it's just flat, straight, and turn, you'd be braking like on the bridge mark. But because you have to use so much less brake force, you can see me only peaking about 55, if that. I'm great with these rear controls. Just be careful that locking. You can see it over the bumps there. You can just see that little bit of inside rear start to lock as we come over that bump. Bosh. If you do that too much, you're just going to go straight on or spin or have major issues, especially with tyre life. As I say don't slide the car, but that goes for not even spinning the wheels, not locking really. It can really help your overall race stint pace, because any form of slide, any form of overheating of the tyre just makes it much harder for you to set as good race times. So I often find you go pretty slow through here. You use second on the way in just to get the turn in, but as soon as you're kind of reaching the apex, third's good, and you commit to the outside, using as much as possible. A little bit sideways there, but nothing extreme. This corner in a GT car can be flat out. In a cup car, it's not. And you've got to maybe dabble a little bit of brakes, or just wait a little bit on the throttle just to make sure that you're getting through it. I think it's very easy to overwork the fronts here, and I would advise you, even if you're not very comfortable with an oversteery setup, do just take in mind that if you're getting a setup that's got a bit of understeer, it's just going to get worse throughout the race. So corners like this are going to get harder and harder. So maybe you compromise a bit on your setup, making it a bit more oversteery than what you would normally like if you tend to edit that, just because you don't want to come into major front wear issues during. Again, using the curves on it. So here is another corner. I find it very easy to hit the grass on the braking zone here, especially this bit before the curb starts. Just be aware of that again. Just want to be careful. I didn't really get in the rut. There's a rut here, and you'll see it through cockpit camera quite well. You can see it there. So let's just get it in. You can see there's quite a dip in this curb. Yes, it can help pull the car around, but it can also help unsettle the car. And I haven't used it much on this lap. I definitely have, but just be aware on the exit, the car can tend to slide wide, and you don't have loads of room in terms of the exit curbing. Like the exit curbing starts here for some reason. I don't know who in the right mind would ever end up there when the apex is here, but the exit curve is pretty short, is what I'm trying to get at. And you do have to get across quite quickly to avoid going on and off track or driving on the grass for a period of time. Probably one of the trickiest corners on the track. It's never ending, it's always punishing, and it can be a killer to tyres in the race and also to your lap times. My best advice I can give you here is you run the car in pretty hard and you start to trail the brakes on a little bit. I use a maximum of 15%, 10%, just to kind of just trim a little bit of speed. And then when I've kind of reached my point of acceleration, I kind of use the exit of this guardrail here as my reference to get to full throttle. So when I see this kind of coming across the windscreen wiper or across the front of the car, you can get to full throttle and you want to commit to it. As you can see, I was a terrible driver and I decided that I was not brave enough to get to 80%. I went back to 80%, but in general, you can commit to 100 from that point and it'll really help you with your run out. As you can see, I'm not desperately hanging onto the car on the exit. Although it looks close to the track limits, trust me, I could have gone flat out. So just be aware of that. Try and commit to the throttle once you've hit that reference and just go. That's what I'd advise. When we get towards the next section, another one of these corners that's flat in a GT car, but when you get to a cup car, it's a pain. Again, I think the real important thing here is absolutely, I don't even know the word to use, just attack the inside curve. A lot. Okay, so just trust me, just hit it really hard. Just get the wheel right on top of it, because opening this corner's angle up as much as possible is absolutely imperative to lap time, and it'll let you be on full throttle for as long as period as possible. So as you can see here, entering max speed, Vmax is like 231. Then we apex at about 221, trim off 10 kph, and then commit to the throttle. Again, probably can do that a couple kph faster at your apex and your entry a little bit, but overall, I think it was pretty good. Just be aware, you want to be getting on the throttle 100% by the apex, for sure. As you can see, I'm a little bit before it, actually. So yeah, just kind of feel that out. It's one of these corners that can change from session to session, can change from track temp to track temp. Just be aware of that, because let's say from what I'm running on here, the track temp goes up by 10, 15 degrees. These points of reference, especially for acceleration points, will change, and you have to adapt to that in a way. So just keep that in mind. I know it's not maybe the best advice I could ever give, but it does make a massive difference, and it will make what I say slightly incorrect. But the lines and all the reference points you can use across the track are still correct in that regard. Down this little straight again, hold it nice and tight to the left, try and not scrub a load of speed, and once you reach kind of the foreboard, you start to ramp your brake up, peaking about 90%, using a lot of this inside curb, getting nicely on the throttle, trying to minimise that slide. This here, especially in a race, would be quite detrimental to a run. Like, you see that, as soon as you start to see tyre marks, you know it's actually a bit too much. So as you can see, that little faint tyre mark is not good. You don't want that. And I would advise, other than on a hot lap, try and minimise that as much as possible. It's okay on a hot lap, but it still isn't great. But here I get away with it because it's very minimal. Into the final little sector, again, using the curbs just to extend the track. Treat the curbs in iRacing like an extension of the asphalt surface. Again, trying to get as smooth a line of here as possible. What I will say is I've cut too much of the inside curb, and if you get this bounce, as you can see, it pushes the car out, and it can leave you a little bit scary, a little bit on the edge. However, I did still commit to the throttle pretty heavily. So just be aware of that. Just try and trim it a little bit less and not get that jump. But as long as you're not like really seriously dipping into the grass here, you're never going to get an off track for it. Final corner was where I just decided to bottle it completely. You end up braking in a pretty... You end up braking in a pretty interesting spot for the final corner. You're facing away from the corner. It's something I'd never advise to do, but it's just the nature of the line that you end up taking. You could be potentially more aggressive, but I would just, about getting it back across, but I would just be careful with that. Throw your way in, and then just try and get it onto this curb. As you can see, I'm about 5 years from the apex. I've nearly made it to Road Atlanta. So take that as you will. But if you cut this inside, shallow the corner out a little bit, and just get to the throttle well, you'll get a little bit of a better exit. And as you can see, on a quali lap, that's not an issue. In a race run, do not do that whatsoever, because it's the last corner lap. So in a quali lap, it doesn't matter. But in a race run, that'll really cost your rear tyres. It's my desperation to make up for the massive deficiency in skill at that final corner. Final straight, just over the hill to the line, pretty self-explanatory. Don't lift off, and you've done a lap at Road America. Again, a track that I think that the track limits are very exploitable. I think that's the word you could use, and I would advise you to kind of really push your track limits to the very edge, because you can certainly gain a lot of time from it, because the curbs are just so flat around here and they're not going to really unsettle the car at all. So yeah, as per usual, I'll probably say in my outro as well. But do take a look. Do message in the comments. I do tend to read them a lot, and I try to respond. We massively appreciate your support on me coming into this hot lap series for the Porsche Cup, and all your wonderful comments and wonderful likes do make this more doable. Better to do every week, because it's just a lot of motivation to keep providing the best lap guides for you as possible. But yeah, any questions, hit them in the comments. Anything I've not touched on, happy to go over there, or in the Coach Day Discord as well. It's a good place to reach me if you have any questions over the laps. Well, that has been the lap guide here for week number 9 of the Porsche Cup Series on iRacing. Please do tell me your feedback down below, as I've already talked about in the lap guide and all that type of stuff. Discord's in the description, link below. The website for all your setup needs on iRacing or Assetto Corsa Competizione. Yeah, please don't forget to subscribe, like the video, tell me why I'm terrible, or whatever you want to do. But thank you very much for watching, and until week 10,